Peace, everybody. This is Ibrahim Tanner again with another episode of Ibrahim Tanner TV. I got my brother Naheem on with me tonight. Hopefully a few other people jump on. We got to go over this Freemans Bank forum. But in order to get to the Freemans Bank forum, I got to really walk y'all through this, right? So we're going to have to go back and start at the Obama administration and walk y'all all the way up to present day, because I got my tinfoil hat on today, my tinfoil kufi. I'm seeing some things. I'm seeing a pathway to victory for a lady that's very determined to become the first woman president, and she couldn't do it through the front door. So I'm gonna show y'all how she plans to do it through the back door, and whose legacy she's willing to use to get there. And I believe this is the approach that we are now witnessing. I know a lot of people is upset after they watched that Freeman Bank forum, and rightfully so. But I think it's a little bit bigger than what a lot of people are seeing. Yes, this is the erasure of the American Freedmen. Since we've been in this country, people have used our legacy to come up, and when they get done with it, they just discard us. So we got to start. We're going to start with this Freeman Bank forum, the initial Freeman's Bank forum, when it was actually named the Freeman's Bank, right? So we're going to go back a little bit. We're going to go back just to come up. We're going to go back to come up. So this actually started during the Obama's administration. So it says on January 7, 2016, Treasury Secretary Jacob Lew renamed the Treasury Annex the Freeman's Bank Building. The Treasury Annex was erected on the original site of the Freeman's Bank Building in Washington, D.C. As such, Secretary Lew thought it fitting to rename the Treasury Building after the sesquicentennial of the founding of the bank. And they go over a lot of the history of the bank, and they tell you about the end of slavery and the birth of the Freedmen's Bank. And they got the images ready, right? This is about a particular group of people, not everybody. This is about freedmen and the promise that Abraham Lincoln made to the freedmen, and how they were going to do Reconstruction and really get these people assimilated into society. So I just want everybody to know that what you see now from the Biden-Harris administration started during the Obama era. So Obama starts this program, and this is like his farewell going out. He does a few initiatives, and this is one of them. I don't really know the strategy for this, but this is pretty much an alley-oop to what they thought would be a shoe-in presidency of Hillary Clinton. There's a significant amount of voters that are ready to usher in a woman's presidency. If y'all remember this, because during the end of Obama's era, and you got to remember, Obama left about over 100 judicial seats vacant, including the Supreme Court justice seat. Supreme Court Justice RBG thought that she was going to retire when Hillary Clinton came in. Everybody thought Hillary was just going to be the shoe-in president, and what was going to happen was Hillary was going to come in, and I believe she was going to appoint all those open seats to women. It was going to be the year of the women, the woman president, and she appoints Supreme Court Justice as a woman, and RBG retires, and they replace her with another woman, and all of these justice seats up under her that Obama left open, she was going to appoint women, and they was just going to usher it in. It was going to be the 100-year anniversary of the suffrage movement, and Hillary was going to be at the helm of that as the first woman president of the United States of America. They was getting all ready. Y'all remember this? Y'all remember this? When they told these women to dress up in white and come out and vote for Hillary? Y'all remember that? Everybody was dressed in white. Y'all remember that? Yeah. What about this one? What about that one? Yeah, this was the This was going to be Hillary. Hillary was going to come in. She was going to come in and she was going to save the day. She was going to come in and save the day. That was Hillary. It was going to be the year of the woman. But we all know what happened. It wasn't the year of the woman. It was the year of the orange man. Because what Hillary found out is that even though white women told Hillary they had her back, they didn't have Hillary's back. They voted for Trump. They knew what side, they knew where their bread was buttered at. And Hillary didn't get to become president. Trump came in and Trump ruined everything. But this is when, so Trump comes in, my bad, I got interrupted by a call. Trump comes in, Trump ruined everything for Hillary. And I think a segment of society still wants to see a woman presidency. They still want to see a woman presidency. Hillary is getting old. She done ran too many times. Elizabeth Warren tried, but then somebody else came and tried. And a lot of people thought that she was going to win. This is when you seen Kamala Harris step up. And Kamala Harris thought that she was going to be the first, not only woman president, but the woman of color president. But the only problem was Kamala Harris is a horrible politician. Y'all remember that dumpster fire that she ran as a campaign? Y'all remember this? Y'all remember Kamala Harris campaign where she just flamed out? Let me walk y'all through some of this stuff. This is from the New York Times article. Many of her own advisors are now pointing a finger. Let me scroll y'all up to the beginning so y'all can see the name of this article. It's called How Kamala Harris Campaign Unraveled. Ms. Harris is the only 2020 Democrat who has fallen hard out of the top tier of the candidates. She has proven to be an uneven campaigner who changes her message and tactics to little effect and has a staff torn into faction. Look at that. Came out with a head full of steam and just ran right into a brick wall. She had the money. She had a robust staff. She had everything. Couldn't manage it. Many of her own advisors are now pointing a finger directly at Ms. Harris. In interviews, several of them criticized her for going on the offensive against rivals only to retreat and for not firmly choosing a side in the party's ideological feud between liberals and moderates. She also created an organization with a campaign chairwoman, Maya Harris, who goes unchallenged in part because she is Ms. Harris' sister and a manager. Mr. Rodriguez, who could not be replaced without likely triggering the resignation of the candidate's consulting team. Even at this late date, aides said it's unclear who was in charge of the campaign. So they don't know if it's her sister or they don't know if it's Rodriguez. They don't know when Maya Harris is speaking as a sister and when she's speaking as a campaign manager. Everybody's just confused. With just over 2 months into the Iowa caucus, her staff is now riven between competing factions, eager to belittle one another. And the candidate's relationship with Mr. Rodriguez has turned frosty, according to multiple Democrats close to Ms. Harris. Several aides, including Jaleesa Washington Price, the state director in crucial South Carolina, have already had conversations about post-campaign jobs. So during the middle of Kamala Harris' campaign run, some of her aides was looking for a way out. They was already on Indeed putting their resumes in because they seen that dumpster fire wasn't going anywhere. Representative Marcia Fudge, who has endorsed Ms. Harris and is a former chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, said in an interview that the senator was an exceptional candidate who had been poorly served by some top staff and who must fire Mr. Rodriguez. But she also acknowledged that Ms. Harris bore a measure of responsibilities for her problem. It's her campaign and that the structure she created has not served her well. I have told her there needs to be a change, said Mrs. Fudge. Listen. This goes back to leadership. This was all on Kamala Harris. Don't try to blame your campaign staffer. So what happened is she had split her campaign between the East and the West Coast. So on the West Coast in San Francisco, she had her sister Maya Harris running it. Then on the East Coast in Baltimore, she had Rodriguez running it. And they was just feuding. She basically had Itchy and Scratchy running her campaign. They was scratch, fight, fight, fight. They was just fighting each other. They didn't know what to do. It was so bad when New York Times and other people came to interview them. Almost everybody, this is unprecedented. Almost everybody was willing to throw each other up under the bus. To me, it seemed like this is what Suge Knight would have did if he ever established Death Row East, right? It was just been fighting on one coast, fighting on the other coast. Miss Harris thing just flamed out. She ran out of money. She just dropped out. But then she came and she got a breath of fresh air because Black women voters kind of leaned on Biden and said, you know, Black men don't really want to vote for you. And in order for us to fall behind you and give us that support for you to get Trump out of office, we want you to pick a vice president woman. So Kamala Harris got a second win. She got a second win and she moved into VP. Now, I seen this rant. Now, pay attention, right? Pay attention. I seen this rant and I thought about it. And I'm like, this is going into effect right now, right? Listen to this rant by Tamika Harris. I mean, not Tamika Harris, Tamika Mallory. Listen to this.
I am curious, fascinated actually.
This is an interview with TMZ. And Tamika Mallory is going to say something pivotal. This is right when Biden and them comes in, before Trump is out of the house, before January 6th, before they actually get into office. But they are president-elect and vice president-elect.
I am curious, fascinated actually, that if Biden is a transitional president, which he is, and Kamala Harris runs in 2024, possibly the first Black female president in the history of the country, if the Biden administration doesn't deliver what you want, you're in an interesting position. Do you withhold support to Kamala Harris in 2024?
Well, yeah, I think you look at whoever the Democratic nominees are, and you began to invest in individuals who actually have your best interests at heart. I mean, we obviously were living in a situation that was imminent threat. We had to get rid of Donald Trump. He just could not be the president of the United States anymore. And so we had a situation where we had to vote against him. But that day is over. We're now in a time that when the Democratic nomination period comes up again, we may have to make a different choice. I hope that that is not the case. I truly want to believe that Kamala Harris, Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, is going to work really hard, one, to reckon with some of the issues in her past, and also because she's really been on a listening tour, gathering information and trying to understand the intricacies of the issues that Black folks are dealing with across the nation. And so, you know, I don't put my faith in any one white man, especially a white man that's over 70 years old, who we know, unfortunately, Vice President Biden has invested and been a part of some of the most dangerous and detrimental things that have happened to Black people in this country. But I do believe that we can all grow, we can all evolve, and I hope this is a moment when we're going to see something different happen, especially if we win the 2 Senate seats in Georgia. Now, I will say that when you think about the issue of Kamala Harris and what she will or will not be able to accomplish, you're going to have to start talking about sexism, which I would argue is almost worse than, maybe worse than, racism in this country. And so whether or not, even if she does a great job, the idea that she's going to be able to win the presidency is still an uphill battle for us when we look at how women are treated in this country.
So y'all heard that.
Let me jump in.
Yeah, jump in.
Let me jump in real quick. Peace to the bros. You know, if you listen to Charlemagne's interview with Biden, he says, you know, why should we vote for another old white man? Right. And then, you know, we give Biden with the clap back. I'll tell you one thing, if you don't vote for me, you're not Black. So one of the things that I notice is that when pushing the Democratic candidate, these, I guess we could call them Black pundits, They try to use this tactic of saying, just vote for the lesser of two evils because the greater evil is too great to be in office. But the lesser of two evils, he's not that bad, right? And what Tamika Mallory is saying there is a crazy bit of gaslighting. To say that Kamala Harris wouldn't be, she's basically saying Kamala Harris wouldn't be president due to this false notion that this country isn't ready for a woman president. I'll say this. If you take a Nikki Haley on the right that's not feuding with Trump, obviously, because they're competing for the presidency, and she's a viable candidate on the right, I don't care who they run on the Democratic side in 2024. Nikki Haley's going to win that seat. So, the gaslighting and the manipulation is she said Kamala Harris is on a listening tour, but I bet you they're not listening to black men. I bet you they're not listening to men in the cities who are talking about they are going to vote for Trump, or they support Trump, or they back Trump, et cetera, et cetera. I bet you they're not listening to black men as to why they are disaffected Democrats and are now saying they are going to vote Republican from here on out. They're not really listening to anything. Tamika Mallory, she does this every election cycle. The next clip you'll hear of her is actually shaming black men and telling them that they need to get behind black women in order for them to vote. And this is another way that they're going to try to boost Kamala Harris. But with this, whatever they do is going to fail. Because if your tactic is, if your initial tactic was, we just got to get Trump out of office, forget what Biden did in the past because he did some bad stuff. And, people can change, but we got to get this other white evil man out of office. And that's not a policy prescription for the people that helped put him in office. It's just not. And that's not going to work this go round. And I believe that in 2024, the Democrats are going to lose horribly. I believe they're going to lose those 2 Senate seats in Georgia that Tamika Mallory is speaking of as well.
Josh, you want to jump in? You got anything to say? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what you already touched on. I was just hopping on. But I just gotta say that we had this exact same conversation. I want to say like last year or the year before that. Every year when they have this Freedmen's Bank Forum, it's been a slow walk or a brisk walk, faster and faster away from freedmen. And you notice the conversation change more from like anchoring it in the history of the plight of the freedmen, and just more so having it in the POC tune. Like, it's a tune that the POC is that kind of quickens. It quickens like, okay, we need to do something because freedmen are a part of the POC quote unquote coalition or part of that group. We're just going to do something for the whole group, but we're not going to have any freedmen mentioned or have any freedmen a part of that. And the ones that you do here, they're the ones that are not even specific. Everybody else is specific, but in order to,
I think right now you a little bit ahead of the conversation.
All right.
We're gonna get to that part. So everybody remembers this. Everybody.
The reality also is this: any policy that will benefit black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit black people. No.
So everybody remembers that. And Kamala had a birthday bash about a month or so ago, and they had these hip hop artists there. They had Dougie Fresh and everybody there, and she was basically saying, "I got 2 Dougies," and they was dancing around. But during that same time, she was interviewed. about a couple months ago, she was interviewed. And I don't think people caught this, right? But I saved this because I said, you know what, this is going to come back up. And I was going to do a show just based off this, but listen to what the question is and listen to what she has to say.
And Sage often go hand in hand with questions about how you would step in the role, if necessary. Do you feel prepared for that possibility? And serving as vice president prepared you for that job?
Yes.
And how would you, describe that process?
Well, first of all, I'm answering your hypothetical. But Joe Biden's going to be fine. So that is not going to come to fruition. But let us also understand that every vice president understands that when they take the oath, that they must be very clear about the responsibility they may have to take over the job of being president.
And I'm going to play that one more time.
Sage often go hand in hand with questions about how you would step in the role, if necessary. Do you feel prepared for that possibility? And serving as vice president prepared you for that job?
Yes.
And how would you, describe that process?
Well, first of all, I'm answering your hypothetical. But Joe Biden's going to be fine. So that is not going to come to fruition. But let us also understand that every vice president understands that when they take the oath, that they must be very clear about the responsibility they may have to take over the job of being president.
So we asked her about coming in if something was to happen to Biden. I like how she added that caveat that, Biden is going to just be just fine. Biden is running around talking about aliens. He's tripping up to Air Force One. He tripped up the stairs 3 times, right? He tripped. He tried to play it off. He tripped again, and then he just fell. We've seen him trip off the bike. We've seen him wandering around stages. We've seen him running around at the Air Force graduation, just doesn't know where he is. I'm not no medical professional. I'm not diagnosing him, but I know when somebody's not right. And when you look at his age and just his deterioration over time, you can just look at him and tell something's not right. He's not his old, robust, racist self. This Biden is a shell of himself. Father Time is undefeated. It happens to everybody. And I really believe this was, Kamala's pathway to presidency. You have to understand, if white women don't support a white woman candidate, then they're never going to make a black woman or a woman of color the first woman presidency. But the same way Kamala Harris became the first woman of color VP is the same way she can become the first woman of color presidency. She can just ride in the coattail of a white man, in this case, Joe Biden. And I think that's the setup all along, right? So you still need a base. And I think she's formulating a base with New Americans. When she ran her failing campaign, she got a lot of pushback from the black community. She got support from black women as well, but she got a lot of pushback from the black community. What better base to have than New Americans that doesn't have no political memory in this country? Right? These are just New Americans. All they know is Kamala Harris. She gave us a lot of stuff. We're interested in her, right? That doesn't mean they're going to support her because, we know that immigrants come into this country, they initially go with the party that brings them in, but then eventually they start to go to whichever party they were aligned with in their home country. So I think Kamala Harris is going after a new base, and she understands she can't run just based off her own political ideologies and her positions. Because like I said, when I read that New York Times article, she doesn't have any. She's shifting on everything. 1 minute she supports Medicare for all, 1 minute she don't. 1 minute she supports Green New Deal, 1 minute she don't. Sometimes she's a little bit more liberal, sometimes she's a little bit more moderate. She doesn't have a position on anything. She's just a chameleon. She'll say whatever, whenever, just to get the vote. And that comes back to her and her campaign. So now she's like, you know what? I'll just get behind Biden. I'll get behind Biden because anybody that understands, how this thing works with age can see that I didn't think Biden was going to make it through the first 4 years, right? And he's not doing too well now. He never comes out and does TV appearances, when he does media appearances, something always goes wrong. You got a bunch of Secret Service men that's there that's kind of like ushering him around and make sure he doesn't make bigger blunders than what he's already making. And I think this is Kamala Harris' pathway to becoming the first woman president of the United States of America. She couldn't get in through the front door. She's very ambitious, and she's going in through the back door, and she's going to try to build her base with new Americans. Now, how is she going to try to build her base? Now, that brings us to what's going on today with this Freemans Bureau bank forum. And this was just, completely disrespectful. I'm going to highlight some things, but people have to understand, this project is Kamala Harris's project. Biden doesn't show up for this. Biden doesn't speak about this. His handlers might say some things here and there. Last year was the first year that the Biden-Harris administration had this banquet. We covered that. I covered that in an article. It's pinned to my Twitter account at Ibrahim Tanner 1. You can read it. Kamala actually showed up in person to give an address. This year, she also gave an address. It was via like a Zoom link or some type of link. So she didn't physically show up. But understand, this is her project. This is her political contribution to the Biden-Harris team. I just want people to understand that. Okay, so I'm going to go through, if y'all haven't watched the bank forum, it's long. It had a lot of pauses. I'm just going to go through and kind of just hit some key pieces in this, and we're going to break it down because I believe her strategy is to win over new Americans and immigrants. Obama came through and he cloaked himself in American Freedmen. And then he got through the door, and then we found out his background. Like, dang, he fooled us. He's not for us. Oh, he was raised by his white grandparents and, everything. But he was the first one through the door, so he kicked the door open. The next person that comes through the door, Kamala can come through the door and be president and don't have to really cloak herself in American Freedmen. She can be loud and bold as the woman of color immigrant that she is. And I think this is all her strategy to win. So I'm going to pull up this Freemans Bureau. And I'm going to just share some of the stuff that was going on. And we're just going to have a conversation and talk about it. So I'm going to start at this mark right here. They kind of talk about why the purpose of the Bureau.
Into economic mainstream of the country. The legacy of Freedmen's Bank is our continued striving to end the wealth gap and advance economic mobility for the descendants of formerly enslaved people and all those that have been historically overlooked and underestimated. Since day one, our administration has focused its attention on addressing this persistent racial inequity in our country. And Treasury has worked to uphold the legacy of Freedmen's Bank by rooting out inequity in our economy. The rationale for this is simple. Advancing racial equity is not just a moral priority, it's also critical to our economic success. This understanding guided the administration's efforts during the pandemic and enabled us to execute a historically equitable recovery. Through the American Rescue Plan, we supported families.
So they're going to tout some of Biden's plan, the Rescue Plan, Build Back Better, and the CHIPS Act. So they're ramping up, for this 2024 presidential run. They're going to tout a few of his plans. And if you notice in the intro, and when a lot of these people come on, they're going to use the history of the American Freedmen. Everybody's going to stick to the history. She talks about it, the failed bank, and then they're going to automatically switch it to disadvantaged communities and minority community. That's going to be a recurring theme throughout. All right. So I'm going to get back into the video. I'm going to let them introduce themselves so you can kind of see who's on the panels. Right, they do a quick introduction, and because I really need y'all to see. And so the first panel was 3 women. And here
Go
we
on,
go.
Nellie Galen. Thank you. All right, so we have about 25 minutes, and so we're going to Leisha Wong, Dollar Organization's Wisdom Panel. And that is because each of these women have led successfully, and that's the operative word here, successfully managed multiple teams and led multi-million-dollar organizations. To my left, the amazing and impactful Neera Tanden, the president's domestic policy advisor. We're going to give her another round of applause. The brilliant and respected leader of the Roosevelt Institute, Dr. Felicia Wong. And the trailblazing entrepreneur, author, media executive, nonprofit leader, I could go on, Nellie Galen. Thank you.
So what you see in the first panel, none of them are us. You got Neera Tanden. She's a political consultant, government official, director of the U.S. Domestic Policy Council. Felicia Wong, president and CEO of the Roosevelt Institute. That's a think tank. And then you got Nellie Galen. She does media and is an entrepreneur. They're going to speak in specificity. When they speak, they're going to speak directly to their community, right? The first one I'm going to go to is how they kind of misrepresented the data. I'm going to go right here and let y'all hear how they misrepresent the data and what they're saying.
Is that if we have economic growth and economic success reaching all communities, then it creates economic growth for the entire country. Mm-hmm. And that, we called it All In the report, All In Nation, because it really was about the central fact. And I'm proud to say that has been an animating principle of this administration and this White House. The president is hyper-focused on ensuring that the opportunities we're creating with the investments we've made, the Invest in America agenda, right. Our infrastructure law, our Inflation Reduction Act investments in clean energy, disparities, right. Mm-hmm. Which really focused in on this and to be here at Treasury on an issue that is really important to the president, the vice president, to this administration, which is ensuring that we have growth in the country that is pulling everyone in. And just to say, to answer your question directly, back in the day when I was president of the Center for American Progress, we did a report now a decade ago called All In Nation, mm-hmm. which really focused in on this central question, which is how does the disparity that we see between the country's median and communities of color, how is that holding us back economically? And mm-hmm. way back then, again, in 2013, we did an analysis, a kind of deep research with a lot of analytics, and determined that in a specific year, 2011, so again, far back, but in 2011, the fact that we had these disparities right. created $1.2 trillion in lost economic growth right. to the GDP. So that really just was to say, if communities of color right. were reaching the economics, basically the economic status of the median in the country, which is white families, that would be $1.2 trillion in additional growth for the country.
So this is just money that was on the sidelines.
Essentially, yeah, exactly. And it's really that, and the idea here is, there's so much in our politics that is.
Let me pause there right there. She's misrepresenting the study. That study was about our community being locked out and not getting what we deserve. This study wasn't about all people of color. I'm going to pull up some of this Federal Reserve data. So y'all can see. This isn't about all communities.
Yeah, let's get into it.
This is about our community. It's not about all communities, right? We're going to start up here. Can y'all see that? Can you see that,
yeah.
Josh?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So we got figure one. White and Asian families had the most wealth. You can't just
blow it
say,
up some, Ibrahim.
is that better?
No.
Well, you just blew up one chart.
Yeah. We just gonna deal with this chart right now.
Okay.
Well,
right.
what I was saying, blow
Or
the
do you want me to blow the whole thing? Okay,
yeah,
hold on.
blow the browser up some so we could see like the numbers and the letters. I can't see them that good.
Okay, let me blow the browser up.
Hit Control Plus. Or if your mouse got a wheel, Control and then wheel up. There you go.
Is that
There you
better?
go. Yes.
Much better.
Yes.
Okay. So what you see is white families at the median. This is in thousands of dollars. So $285,000 at the median. We're gonna skip down to other Asian. $562,000 at the median.
So they lapping white people.
No. They man, you talking?
They lapping white people.
Yeah, almost double that. Almost like, come on, man. 536,000 at the median. 536,000 at the median.
That represents they 12xing black, which is not even freedmen. So if let's just say if the freedmen is buoyed by the black number is buoyed by immigrants who have a elevated wealth level than freedmen, it'd probably be 13 to 14x freedmen.
Yeah.
So why is it that they're making a claim like, oh, we're staggering behind white people when a large percentage of this is like first generation? It's not even talking about what this wealth is going to do as more and more generations are entering. You get more and more generations, and this white wealth represents poor people because you got poor whites, you got people who are middle class whites, and you got wealthy whites, and that's what you have when you have many generations into a country. What this other Asian represents is largely one and possibly two generations or first generation immigrant in the country, and that's achieving this level of wealth. It's not now. If you're complaining about this right here in the first and second generation, what's going to happen when this becomes multiple generations? See, we're looking at the median numbers, but when you get to the overall large numbers, that mean is going to increase. So what they're scroll down, Ibrahim. What they're complaining about is this mean. See, they're saying, well, wait a minute. Our mean wealth is only a little bit. It's only 500,000 more than white people. Wait, well, 400 and whatever, 60,000 more than white people. Why isn't the mean double in white people? So we need to we need to have more infusion and more access and more resources so we can double white people at the mean. Well, come on. I mean, you're only 1 or 2 generations in. Matt, when you're able to compound, let's say the next generation of Asians die and they already have this wealth, and they pass it down to the children, and the children don't have debt, they don't have to pay for a house, they got investment properties, and they're able to have more to invest in businesses and all that kind of stuff. Now you're going to start to see this mean increase. You may see some of the median decrease. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's going to increase too, but this mean will definitely increase. So what you got to understand is, how are you legitimately making a claim that about the economic condition? And I know that when they're saying people of color, they're not specifically saying Asian, but it's including Asian. So you can't speak on this as if this group doesn't exist, as if this number doesn't exist, because I'm not the one to sit on here and cape for white folks. It's white this, but if you can make a case why there's a wealth gap, I don't understand. You open it up for white people to come and say, wait a minute, we got a white wealth gap now.
You got a white wealth gap because at the mean, right? If you look at the median wealth is 536 to white people's 285,000. But when you come down here at the mean, it's 1.8 million to white people's 1.3 million. So white people can say, hold up, we need help. We need help because we lacking. because we let elite Asians come over here, and they come with all of the trappings of being in the elite class, and they able to outdo us. They able to outdo us when it comes to earning. Now, pay attention to the Black and Hispanics. For Hispanics, most of them just got here. They're first generation, second generation. They're doing better than us. And we've been here since the establishment of this country. We built this country. They're doing better than us. They keep saying this Black and brown, but the brown only been here for 1 or 2 generations, and they are doing better than us. See, people think that, you come from these southern border countries or South America, and they all come as poor immigrants. There's more billionaires in Mexico City than there is all American freedmen in America. And we come from the richest nation in the world. People don't understand that. America does elite immigration. It's a brain drain. They're taking people from the top. So you see Black, right? And we're kind of boosted by Black immigrants because they come over and they're elite. And if you look at Dirty's report of color of wealth, you'll see that Nigerian immigrants in LA had a median net worth of 100,000, and overall African immigrants was 70,000, and ours was nominal, right? So those groups come over, and that 10% of that's not American freedmen bolsters us. And like Josh said, if you extract them out, if you extrapolate the data, and it's just us, oh man, you will see that we really on the floor. Yeah, go ahead, Naheem.
Now, remember the report that was done, I think CNN reported on it as well, and it showed that if you stopped white wealth right now, it would take Black people in America, as we're called, 228 years to catch up to white wealth. But it would only take Hispanics 87 years. See, I don't think these reports are being properly, well, not this particular report, but that report is being properly broken down. Why would it take people that are just here, a generation or second generation, such a short amount of time to get to parity with white wealth? 87 years, and it would take us 228 years. Now we couple
and that's if white wealth stopped growing. If it just
stopped growing.
But Pete,
that's right. Wait, hold on, Josh. Go ahead. Now add the fact that you're bringing in massive waves, and we're just sticking with the people who are classified as Hispanic when they come to the United States of America, right? Massive waves of immigrants year after year after year. So they're people that are coming here with no money in their pocket, if you will, and now they're measured as basically being broke. Right? Let's just use that terminology for now. They're a wealthless immigrant group. And these broke Hispanics come over here and they add on to the overall wealth of Hispanics. And even in that, these people still are surpassing us in so many areas. And that's why I do not believe that a lot of these reports are being broken down properly, especially when it comes to Hispanics. Think about it. You're adding thousands upon thousands of poor Hispanics from poor countries into this country every year. Huh?
Can't rub 2 nickels together.
Can't rub 2 nickels together. Next thing you know, through what Roy Beck called ethnic networking, these people within 5 years are either running businesses, running Hispanic businesses, or are working for running Hispanic businesses that are making revenue, you know what I'm saying? And they're able to employ their people, and they're able to live a life that many American freedmen have not been able to live in this country. And I wanted to throw that in there because as you and Josh was breaking that down, I thought about that report. 228 years for us if white wealth stopped growing, and 87 years for Hispanics who keep adding to their population. How well are Hispanics really doing in this country? I think that's something that really needs to be fleshed out.
And I wanted to add a couple more pieces to this. Number one, there was what was that? I can't remember the name of it wasn't Brookings. It was what was the report that broke down like what is the real percentage of Black immigrants in the country when you factor in like the children of the immigrants. So it's like the immigrant.
I think Pew did that.
Pew Research. That's right, Pew Research. So they were like the true immigrants, like the people that came over here within their lifetime that were born in another country. That's like 10%, roughly 10, 12%. But then when you factor in their children, it's like, I want to say 25%, and they project that to be like 40% in the next 30 years. So like really when you factor that in, like the children of those people who were actually born in another country. So now you have like 25% of the Black population. That's a very significant percentage, especially when you consider that a lot of these are coming from elite African backgrounds. So if we that's why we were pushing so hard to get the Office of Management and Budget to recognize American Freedmen as a unique category, so we can get the proper data collection and have the proper numbers. And I want to suggest this. I don't, maybe this is something we need to consider. I'm not saying we should just run with this right now, but it's something we should consider. Maybe we need to look at closing the wealth gap between the Black wealth level and the Asian wealth level, since they're gonna categorize that and put that on the chart. Go ahead and close the Black Asian wealth gap. I'm interested in doing that. Why not?
And let me say just briefly, that's why we stopped using the term racial wealth gap. Mm-hmm. See, when you just use the term wealth gap, you don't just look at the gap between white and Black anymore. You look at the overall wealth gap. Again, 228 years for us to catch up and 87 years for them to catch up. We have to focus on the wealth gap in general.
So I just pulled up a report, and this is data from the Pew Research, and they kind of break these groups down, right? So it says that the household median income for Asian Americans increased by 1.8% from 2020 to $101,418,000 in 2021. That is 43% greater than the national median income of $70,000. So the national median income is about $71,000, but for Asians, it's over $101,000. Among Asian American subgroups, Kamala Harris, right? Indian Americans, and they're talking about from India. Indian Americans have the highest median income, $119,000, followed by Philippine Americans, $90,000, Japanese Americans, $83,000, and Chinese Americans, $82,000. Asian Americans are experiencing faster income inequality growth than other demographic groups, according to Pew, as Burmese Americans make a median income of $44,000. All right. So if you dissect the Asian American community, what you'll see is they're all over the median income except for Burmese. Right? Indian Americans being the highest at $119,000. So how do they get put in minorities? But then when you look at minorities, you got white women in there too. And that's, we're going to get back into this forum, but that's what you see. So what happens is, and if you listen to the forum, what you'll hear them talk about is that we cut out a slice of this American pie and we're going to give it to all minorities, but that's everybody excluding straight white men. So everybody got to eat. If it's 10%, 20%, 30%, everybody got to eat from this little bit of slice. And somehow everybody gets equated to be like us when they haven't had our shared experience in this country, and we're at the bottom, and we're at the bottom for a reason. But nobody has the legacy that we have in this country. And that's the horrible thing about it. See, if you really want to hold a Freedmen Forum Bank, you just talk about the freedmen. And we're going to get into that because the problem is when these people came up, they were specific about who they were talking about. At the end, you'll see some, I believe, to be American Freedmen come up, but they're not specific about who they're talking about.
We want, but if we don't teach them the system,
Mm-hmm.
if we don't teach them, all of us.
Right. They've been there for a while, right?
And yes, and the fact that, you know, so many, I who worked on the front lines with the SBA and when I was living in California, with the governor of California to try to get the PPP loans to small business owners and realized that they didn't have the right paperwork.
Right.
They didn't know how to fill out the forms. And so I really want to talk more about that because I think we can help our communities all we want, but if we don't teach them the system, if we don't teach them how to understand the tax laws and the system, they can't get to where they need to go. So to me, this is of the utmost importance.
Got it. All right, Nara, I'm going to come back to you because you brought up the Investing to America agenda. I want you.
So what she's explaining is that there are programs out there that works. We just don't know how to work the system. And she's comparing us to Latinos who just got into this country and have language barriers. We don't have the same barriers that other groups have. We speak this language well. We speak this language very well. We understand how the banking system works. See, it's not the fact that we're intimidated to go to the bank and fill out the application and get the loan. It's the fact that your granddaddy got denied, your mom got denied, your dad got denied, your older brother, your older sister got denied. And now they want you to go to the bank just so you can get denied. And you know you don't qualify as well as they did. So now it leaves you to say, I'm not even going, I'm just going to figure it out on my own. And this idea that there was also a recurring theme that small businesses is the backbone of America. That's not true. That's just not true. Small businesses represent about 10 to 15% of the jobs in America. And we know
they the toe bones of America.
Exactly.
The feet bones.
We know that overwhelmingly the small businesses in our communities are sole proprietorship. They only have just one person operations. I don't care how many times somebody yells on Twitter that they're a CEO or what they got going on because they was able to get away with a PPP loan. So far they've been able to get away with a PPP loan. Right. They said they had 10 employees, 30 employees or whatnot, and they got a bunch of money and now they're running around with big chain on talking about their CEO. Most of our companies is just sole proprietorship. You're just a glorified employee. I mean, I run a business. I run a small trucking company. It's just me. I'm not a CEO. I'm not a boss. I'm not anything. I'm just a worker. If I don't work, I don't eat. That's just how it goes. Right. So they come in. I played the video yesterday. I'm gonna play this collage that I kind of put together, right? I'm gonna play this collage that I put together because I think it's important when you see these people come in and they're just talking about their group. And I don't blame them for talking about their group, but it's the fact that like you doing this here though. This is not where you come and talk about what's going on in your community. Not at the Freedmen's Forum. Go do that at your own forum. Not at ours. Let me exit out of this. Hold on. Let me exit out of this. And let me pull this up. I'm gonna just play this video real quick because this was problematic to me. And this, like, Ali was listening to this before I even got involved, and he was like, "Man, this is making my blood boil." So it prompted me to go listen to this video.
Man, come on, man.
Do a shout out first to the Latinos in the room because Latinas are the #1 fastest growing entrepreneurs in the country. I say about Latinos, but also my African American sisters and brothers and my Asian sisters and brothers that I go back to what I started with. I have spent a lot of time in the front lines only speaking to entrepreneurs in the last 4 years. And the biggest problem is our lack of literacy. And it is about how to do our paperwork. It's about understanding even all of the great gifts that you guys have sent us, but we don't even know how to get them. And sometimes we just even feel embarrassed to ask for them. Latinos don't like to ask for money.
That immigrants represent our national advantage. And that can be said for a lot of communities of color or minority communities as well. And today, 10 years later, it feels like what was an opportunity then for us is now a responsibility. And so what we embodied and what we thought through was for a nation that has one of the most elegant representations of immigrant success, the Statue of Liberty, what more can we do to encourage that entrepreneurial drive? And so what we decided to look for was ways that we could not only invest in immigrant communities, but also sponsor their visas. A lot of the entrepreneurship happens behind closed doors, specifically within immigrant communities. And, it's not that they came to the United States and then thought of a company to start. Coming to the United States was an entrepreneurial act. Right? That started that journey in the US. And then I think you go a little bit further, they don't have a passport with an eagle on it. And so they have no clubs, no clout, no memberships. And so what does community give them there? Is that really nice balance of both, where their existential motive.
Bro, come on, man. Hold up. Could you leave that image back up there, Ibrahim?
Oh, okay.
Just put you don't have to play it. I just want to just make something clear.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the caption at the bottom of this video? It says Freedmen's Bank Forum 2023. Freedmen. We're talking about people whose ancestors have been here at least since 1865.
Not Freeman.
At least
not Freeman.
Huh?
So you got a panel full of people that's not Freeman, right?
Not Freeman. So like you're talking about government, large government investment in immigrants. Immigrant is like the antithesis of freedmen. It's like the opposite, because you got somebody whose ancestors been here since a lot of them before America was a thing, and at least since the second founding of America, who never received their fair share in America. And you're coming over here talking about how to leapfrog freedmen at the Freedmen's Bank Forum. Like, I don't know how much more disrespectful this can be. That's like, I mean, I don't even know what that's like. Can one of y'all think of an example? I'm so flustered.
Let me give an example.
Give an example.
It's like the movie The Matrix, where Morpheus is speaking to Neo when they're in the construct, and he says to turn you into one of these, and he holds up a Duracell battery. What fueled the machine city? It was the energy that was produced by the humans that they were basically incubating from birth until they grew old. And then what did they say? They liquefied the dead and intravenously fed them to the living. This is my example, that we are only to be used for our energy. And using this Freedmen's Bank Forum is another way for them to use our energy. You use George Floyd to get everything done for everybody else except the one piece of legislation with George Floyd's name on it. Everybody gets to eat off of us. We are the plug. Everybody else is the sake. America is not the entrepreneurial thing that God just said. We are, because you have to plug into this sake, and then you get to become an entrepreneur, because the plight of our people, the energy of our people is used to electrify other groups.
He said immigrants represent a natural advantage for this country. No, the natural advantage was American freedmen bodies, worth more than every industry during the time of emancipation. Was the American freedmen body, was the labor that we put into this country. You don't get this country without American freedmen. You don't get what semblance of democracy we have without Americans freedmen. American freedmen is just not the secret sauce to America. It's the foundation. It's the foundation. It's what not only built this country, but what kept this country together from cessation. Like what I don't understand what they talking about with all this immigrant language. You don't get the railroads, you don't get the buildings, you don't get the cotton, you don't get the trades, you don't get any of that stuff. You don't get the inventions. Come on, man. Like George Washington Carver makes 1,500 inventions out of the trash can. Like what are these people talking about? They don't have the legacy in this country that we do, and that's the problem. Now, in this clip, they're going to try to bring up some data. See, every time they bring up some data, they misrepresent it, but you got to come back to us because the data is all about us. To make this stuff work, you got to come back to us. You always have to come back to us.
Investments. It's a pleasure to moderate this conversation. It's called Driving Economic Opportunity Through Supplier Diversity and Business Partner Diversity. Now, as catchy as that is, can I break that down for a second? Would that be okay? In this sweep of investments, these generational investments, the biggest infrastructure boom since the 1950s, huge bets on advanced manufacturing and critical industries, the net zero transition to clean energy, which is monumental and crucial for our communities for all the reasons we know. There is a lot of contracting happening and much more set to happen in the years ahead. The private sector is crucial to delivery of these investments and their impacts on the ground. And we need to be very clear. We face risk, not just opportunity, including the risk that we could make the racial wealth gap worse, not better, unless we are intentional about equity, unless we do some things that are bold and do them at scale. I want to give you two numbers really quickly, then I'll jump right into conversation with the panel. First, a measure of the racial wealth gap itself, a very direct one. We rely on Federal Reserve data typically, depending on the measure you use. The gap in real estate assets and financial investments is about 12 to 1. If you look at white households versus folks of color, about 12 to 1. You know what it is in private business assets? That's the technical term for private business wealth. It's about 3 to 1. Okay, so that's number one. Here's another number that should get our attention. The representation of Black-owned firms in the sectors poised for this extraordinary growth, sectors like manufacturing, construction, and utilities, think the power sector, less than 1% Black-owned firms. So we have our work cut out, and this work is absolutely urgent. And here to get into it with me, starting on the far end, my good friend Tom Perez. Tom served in the Obama administration as head of the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice. He was Assistant Attorney General, and he was later our nation's Labor Secretary. He's also served at the local and state levels in government, and Tom currently serves as Senior Advisor to President Biden and Director of the Office of Intergovernmental Affairs in the White House. Tom, welcome. Next to him is Chris Gorman. Chris is CEO of KeyBank, a major lender and provider of financial services. And Chris, I noted that your civic involvement, each of you are very active in your communities, no surprise. You serve on the Board of Trustees of University Hospitals in Cleveland, a national standout, a model actually when it comes to inclusive procurement and supplier development. So thank you for that service and that much more to draw on here in the conversation. And finally, Mike Murphy is Chief Financial Officer of Micron, a world leader in semiconductor manufacturing. Mike has also worked in the automotive sector and in aerospace, so draws on a broader experience, and he's served in our military. Mike is a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps. Please give one more round of applause to our panel.
So I wanted him to introduce the group. So you got Don Graves, Deputy Secretary of Commerce, work. You got Dominique, I don't even know how to say his name, and Morton Margin. So he introduced these people, and before he introduced them, they talked about the racial wealth gap, and he talked about the racial wealth gap getting brought. No, that's the second group coming up. This is
Well, he
Perez.
said, he said,
Perez worked for the Obama administration, and now he works for Biden administration. But he talked about the racial wealth gap, right? And we're gonna key in on Perez. Perez is the furthest away.
hold on, Ibrahim, because he said something that was important. He said, if we're not careful, we're going to make the racial wealth gap worse. I was listening to it live, and I remember hearing when he said that. And I said to myself, y'all are making it worse because y'all are padding the numbers against us, and y'all don't realize that. You keep saying black this and black that, but all of the resources is going to your people. And the numbers that y'all just read from the Federal Reserve just prove that.
First, he did people of color. He was trying to do people of color, but eventually he just said black businesses, right? He just said black businesses. And we know that white corporations like Walmart does more business than all black businesses in America put together. So it's not, and you could even deduce that down to just American Freedmen business. We the ones not getting along, even when we have 700 to 800 credit scores. We the ones who get denied the most, right? So there was a study in Indianapolis that showed, we get denied, and this goes back, 2008, the recession uncovered this. Even when people qualify for prime loans on homes, they still got subprime mortgages, right? We the ones that are getting denied. So you don't even have that equity when it comes to you trying to transfer some wealth into your business. We just get denied. They tried to make it about POC, but he had to come back to black. This is very important because Tom Perez is going to say something that I really keyed in on. He's going to say something. But they're making it. Let me pull up this before I get to what Tom Perez said. Go ahead, Naheem, if you got something to say.
No, I'm good there, man. I just really wanted to hone in on that part where he said that we could be making the wealth gap worse. Like, he doesn't understand how much of that statement was a double-edged sword insofar as you're trying to use the plight of our people, but what you don't understand, what he's not understanding, I think, in the moment is that, yes, because all of these resources are going to go to all of these immigrant groups, while those same black statistics aren't going to budge, while those same areas that he's speaking of will be new enterprises by immigrant groups that in 10 or 20 years from now will see those immigrant groups at much higher percentages than those black groups who will probably either be at the same percent or be non-existent. I thought that was very, very important.
When you look at,
I just want to say, another thing I didn't appreciate was how he kept jumping in and out of, like, the misrepresenting the purpose of using the term racial wealth gap. And this is the reason why we're talking about getting away from the term racial wealth gap, not only because Freedmen we need specificity to segregate Freedmen out from the black racial classification, but because what it allows everybody else to do is to think that because they are a racial group, that they're entitled to have the racial wealth gap closed. Understand the whole point of talking about the racial wealth gap is because we use it as a means to classify the generational damages done against those who of the American Freedmen class who ancestors owed reparations, coming all the way from all the atrocities dealing with slavery, Jim Crowism, all the way through today's mass incarceration, etc. So that's why we use the racial wealth gap, because we're saying to remedy the damages done through the generations, you need to close the racial wealth gap. These other groups did not go through generations of slavery and Jim Crow. So how is it that our reparations is supposed to be closing the racial wealth gap as a baseline, but they're not owed reparations and they're still talking about closing the racial wealth gap? And so basically what they're trying to say is we're not owed reparations, but with the Negroes, these people are these people we need to get the same thing they're getting, even though we didn't go through slavery, even we don't have a claim for justice. Like, so how do you justify closing the racial wealth gap? So I didn't appreciate how when he used the term, when he's trying to describe the discrepancy between the racial wealth gap within real estate, not just wealth, but just within the racial gap between real estate holdings, he says people of color. So what he does is he lumps black with Hispanic and other, and then goes from there. The whole point of looking at the racial wealth gap is saying we know that harms were done. We know that injustice was done for hundreds of years in America. How do we remedy that? We remedy that by making today's America look like there was impartiality by closing this gap. That's not something that every other group is entitled to. So who cares? You can look at the wealth gap, but that doesn't mean the government needs to take affirmative action in closing it by distributing the wealth out to close the gap. That's not what that means. So that's another point. And then he jumped back into black because he knew that's the whole point of examining the racial wealth gap is to show that the disparity between the black and the white side is so great, and we know that that's due to years of harms. And that's how we need to analyze that thing. So I have one more point, but I'm gonna give it back to you, Ibrahim.
So they talk about the business disparity. What you see is that in 2022, white people own about 16% of white people own businesses. About 11% of blacks, almost 10% of Hispanics, 14% of others. That's the AAPI group mostly. When it comes to black businesses, we have so many businesses because we've been kicked out of the private sector. We've been kicked out of the private sector, and our businesses don't scale like white business. So white business is 15, almost 16%, and what you see is blacks at 11%. That's what you see there. Now, I'm going to read this passage. This is from Here to Equality. I'm going to read this. This comes from page 37. I'm going to read this to y'all because I want y'all to really know what black business is about.
Shout out to the good professor.
Shout out to the professor. It says in 2014, the top 100 black-owned firms identified by Black Enterprise Magazine grow slightly less than $30 billion as a group. In comparison, the top revenue-generating white-owned corporation, Walmart, grows $482 billion, 16 times the combined revenue of the top 100 black-owned firms. So just Walmart grows 16 times the revenue of the top 100 black-owned firms. So you give me the top, your best, your brightest, your biggest top 100 black-owned firm. You give me like Robert Smith and everybody else who's up under them, and you add them all together, and they don't even compare to Walmart. Walmart lapping them 16 times, right?
Now scale that again, Ibrahim, with how many black billionaires there are in America against how many white billionaires, and then pick out any one white billionaire, and they could have up to some percentage points more or up to quintuple the worth of all of the black billionaires combined. Just one of them, right? That it goes to show that at every level, whether it's a wealth gap, whether it's a business revenue per year, whether it's a billionaire class, we have been built to be at the bottom of the bottom in this country, and it is our job to change that.
It is. So I'm going to read a little bit more into the second paragraph so y'all can get an understanding of where we stand. Once again, this is the Dr. Darity's book, From Here to Equality. As you can see, is get used over here. We read around here. Furthermore, in 2014, even Nike, which ranked 91st on the Fortune 500 list with an estimated revenue of $30.6 billion, grossed more than all of the top 100 black-owned businesses. 91st. They ranked 91st on their list. They almost was at the 100 mark, and they made more money than the top 100. So when you see that 11% of Black entrepreneurial businesses, it's just failing. It's just people that had enough money to go to the Secretary of State and file for their LLC and get their EIN number, and they're just trying to do the best they can because they can't get a job. The backbone of America is having a good job, not having an entrepreneurial spirit. That time has gone and come, right? That, and I'm gonna tell you why. This right here that I'm about to get to, this was one of the most egregious parts, right? This is, and I'm gonna explain to y'all why, and y'all gonna see what's going on. We talked about this earlier, John. So Tom Perez worked for the Obama administration, worked for the Biden administration. He had this whole spiel about how government can make and break you, and how when government invests in you, you're going to do great. The problem is that government doesn't invest in certain communities. So now he's going to say something that just blew me when I was watching this. Listen to this, y'all.
IRA and in their philanthropic arm, really bringing communities that have been underserved.
So he's talking about how during the Obama administration, they was looking at who managed their accounts, and they brought in these people, and these people did very well. But then he's going to drop a bomb here.
Together so that we don't look back on this and see, oh, we've rewarded the savvy grant writers as opposed to the most worthy projects.
Thank you, Tom. You're bringing us back to a key theme of the morning, accessing the resources, not assuming that everyone can pull them down. Chris?
Now, listen to what Chris says.
To pick it up where Tom just left off, I think I think this notion, the announcements that were made yesterday about these economic opportunity zones are just incredible. I mean, there are smart, driven people everywhere. And once it gets momentum, there's a reason why, people say, well, you could name, Don Graves said you could name the top 5 places. You could, but because it creates an ecosystem and it creates kind of a flywheel. And I think there's a real opportunity not to just continue to invest in the same places, but these opportunity zones. And then the other thing that's just on my mind as we think about what can change is I think there's all these businesses in the United States that were all started after World War II. All the people that own those businesses are thinking about retiring. And I think there's a huge opportunity, we working together, to have those businesses transition to a diverse group of new owners that can take those businesses to a new level, can re-energize them, and frankly, in so doing, can create, generational wealth. And so I just think that's something that's on my mind as well, that I think is just an untapped resource. So Zev, those are.
Y'all heard that? Let me give you what I heard when I heard that. So World War II, we talking about the New Deal. There were all these businesses started after World War II during the New Deal. They got the GI grants, they got Social Security, you got FHA backed mortgage. If you read, I think his name is Ira Rothstein's book, he explains all of this and how American Freedmen was locked out. So what this guy is saying,
Richard Rothstein.
Richard Rothstein.
And Ira Katznelson. You mixed up 2 different authors.
So what this guy is saying, that you have a group of people that's ready to retire. So what you had is people started businesses then, and they handed these businesses down to their children. This is how you get the like all of the big tech people, right? They parents and grandparents benefited from the New Deal. They made immense wealth, either building state colleges, going to school, getting money to farm land, getting homes that was worth that cost almost nothing to get, and those homes are now worth upwards of $700, $800, $1 million. Still got those homes in a family. If you read that book that I just mentioned, I believe 25% of those homes still exist today in the hands of white people. That's where they get some of their wealth from. But anyway. So he's talking about white families. These white families who benefited from the New Deal started businesses. That business is still in their family, and now they want to transition out of that business. what actually happens is those people have made immense wealth off of the New Deal, off of creating that business through generational success, through all of the benefits that the government has allowed them to get. Now you don't have to go to work and actually man your business. Now they have so much capital, they can just sit back and let other people run their business. What he's saying is that now that they're ready to retire, they can transfer that business into new Americans. So what you'll have is white people will be capital holders because they made so much money. And now I'm going to let a new American come and run my business. So I'm the capital holder. I just sit back on my yacht in my mansion, just live my best life, and my family reaps the proceeds of that. And now I'm going to have a new American come, and they're going to be a mid-level manager. They're going to run my corporation. That's what you see a lot with like the Indians in Silicon Valley, and just like in Chicago, where you see a lot of the Latinos, they're operation managers and they're foremen and things of that nature. White people have the capital, they established the business, they got uber wealthy off the business. Now new Americans come in as middle managers, they run that business. American Freedmen is just locked out. We're just locked out. So if you want a job, you're going to have to go to them, and you're going to be just working a menial labor job. Those middle manager positions, those people who now are going to run, you know, it's the top 1%, and then you got the 10% that services the top 1%, and then you got that other 10 to 20% that services them. That's all going to go to new Americans, right? White people are the capital holders. We just showed you the racial wealth gap. They are the capital holders. They invest. New Americans run the businesses, and everybody else can go to them and get a job and just work. You will not be able to create any wealth. This is horrible. What we are saying is give us reparations, because since we didn't get the New Deal, since we didn't get the Homestead Act, since we didn't get any of these things to boost us up, we need it now. And like they said, you know, the racial wealth gap is just growing and growing and growing and growing. It's getting bigger. It's getting bigger. Dirty spoke about this. Dirty spoke about this in a few tweets. Let me see if I got it in here. Pull this stuff up, man. Because it like that to me was horrible, man. For you to sit there and say that new Americans is going to come and get these jobs. I'm like, wow. So there's not a place here for us. You just stay on the bottom. You just here to stay on the bottom and work. We're going to give this money to everybody else but you.
Let me say, before you get into this, let me say, bros, and everybody that's listening, there has to be not just a day of reckoning, but an era of reckoning. And if we're not going to put all of our efforts into reversing these bad practices, because really this is just an extension of the political doctrine of benign neglect. And if we're not going to put 100% of our efforts into reversing these actions and making sure that we are no longer stuck to the bottom in this country, our children and our grandchildren are going to go through hell. And I want us to look into the future. Look at what we're going through as a people. Look around you. Look at gentrified neighborhoods. Look at the ever-changing complexion of the businesses that are around you. And I want you to think about your grandchildren 30 years from now and how bad they're going to have it. Will they be sleeping in tent cities in the country that their ancestors built? That is a question that we have to ask ourselves, and we have to realize that this has to be an era of reckoning for us as American freedmen.
Facts. I mean, it's just awful. It's just awful what's going on right now. So Dirty comment, he had a thread where he was schooling some people on the racial wealth gap. They kept wanting him to use the median, and he's explaining why you use the mean. And he says some quick scribbling indicates the difference in wealth between the average black and white family now comes to a staggering 1.15 million, giving an average black family size of 3.4 persons and an average white family size of 3 persons. The per capita wealth gap is 534,000. If 90% of the 47.2 million black people in the U.S. are descendants of persons enslaved in the U.S., American freedmen, 42.48 million would be eligible for reparations. Reparations sufficient to close the racial wealth gap will require at least 16.71 trillion. The debt keeps growing. These people just said they're going to take 1 trillion and invest it in this Freemans Bureau and basically give it to everybody, and maybe some will trickle down to us. They are willing to invest in everything but us. Now, I know you guys are saying like you got whites, you got a lot of ambiguous looking people, you got a lot of Asians, Latinos. Where are the American Freedmen at the American Freedmen's Bank Forum? Well, here they go. And just listen to some of this foolishness that was coming out of their mouth. Here's Hakeem Jeffries. He speaks real quick. Hakeem Jeffries is going to come on and he's going to do his introduction.
I'm Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, House Democratic Leader. Regrettably, I'm unable to join you today in person due to pressing business here in the United States Congress. Let me begin by acknowledging Secretary Janet Yellen and Deputy Secretary Wally Adeyemo for their incredible work, tremendous leadership, and for convening the Freedmen's Bank Forum. I also want to acknowledge the moderator and all of the panelists for today's event. Director of White House Office of Public Engagement, the Honorable Steve Benjamin, Mayor Van Johnson, my good friend Maya Wiley, and Marla Blow. To all of the leaders here to discuss and showcase solutions to unleash the economic potential of every single American, we thank you for your service and for your participation. Freedmen Savings and Trust Company, known as the Freedmen's Bank, was founded in 1865 for Black Americans recently freed from enslavement to ensure that people once held as chattel and traded like property could finally have their own bank accounts and obtain loans and eventually financial freedom. By 1870, the bank had accepted more than $25 million in deposits. Unfortunately, as part of a backlash to Reconstruction, the premature demise of the Freedmen's Bank occurred, stripping 60,000 hardworking Americans of their savings and wiping out a remarkable opportunity to build financial freedom and generational wealth. Today, many Black Americans face continued difficulties in securing access to capital, entrepreneurship, and home ownership. As we move forward with this effort, it remains critically important that we can uplift traditionally underserved communities in our efforts to build a robust economy for everyday Americans.
Y'all hear the switch? So he gives the whole backstory of the Freedmen's Bank. And from the intro, Maxine Waters her whole speech was garbage. She talked about women businesses and minority businesses being the backbone of America. She just totally erased the American Freedman man out the picture. So I didn't even bring her up there. But anyway, from the intro to now, they intro with the history of the bank. But then when they talk about the benefits and who the benefits go to, it comes to this minority group. It's all about minority, underserved communities, blah, 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 blah. And he does it when he comes here. The other people that came, whether it be Tom Perez, whether it be some of the ladies from the other panels, like we had Mark Blow, not Hammy Lou, Don Grave, Morton Marja, Nira Tandem, Felicia Wong, Nellie Galen. They specifically was talking about their communities. But when it comes to us, we always do this. We give the history, like people need a history lesson. And then we take that history and we attach it to other groups that don't even, that just got here. Wasn't even here, when this country was being built, when this country was being torn apart, when this democracy was being established. And they're willing to just take our legacy and divide it amongst everybody else so they can have an anchoring in this country. And they're not talking about anything. That's the problem. And the other people will say, they came from firms that gave their people $100 million. And they were saying that's not even enough. And we got to do much more. And we got to lean on the government and able for us to do more for our people. Then you get black people coming up here. They just want to talk about history, man. Everybody that came up here, they just want to talk about history and just some whimsical stuff. That's Hakeem Jeffries. He came in, he kind of gave the history, and then he just talked about all people. Now, this next panel is going to be Van Johnson. He's the mayor of Savannah. Mark Blow, he runs this, I believe it's some type of non-for-profit called SCORE, and a lady named Maya Wiley. There's another lady on here too. Right. And they just start talking, man. I don't understand what they talking about.
Wiley is a contributor for MSNBC.
They're not, when you hear them talk, they're not being specific at all, right? She comes on here and she really like gets under my skin with some of this foolishness she's saying. It's just all ambiguous talk.
Well,
Here's
these
Maya.
are both really wonderful questions and really hard questions at the same time, because there are actually a lot of opportunities and a lot of challenges. So I'll just name at the very high level. I mean, the biggest opportunity is this is a tremendous amount of resources, actual dollars intended for the first time in a very meaningful way to hit on the ground communities who have so long been disinvested in and actually named and identified as beneficiaries. That's a big opportunity, but it also maps to the same challenge that is also not a new challenge, which is there have been barriers, whether it's access to capital, access to information, and real preparation for the ability to translate those resources in the kind of vision that people on the ground have for their own communities. But without saying that is a challenge, but just to acknowledge that there are already a lot of folks, including funders, who have been organizing resources to say, what does it mean to be shovel ready? How can we prepare folks for shuttle readiness so that it advances a vision of their own communities?
So she's just talking about all communities. She don't even say, like, no, this is about American Freedmen. And as an American Freedman, I need you to speak to that. I don't need you to speak to all communities and disadvantaged communities. And they always come out and say the same thing. They always come out and say the same thing. She's going to jump back on here and she's going to go into what the black talking heads from the Democrats always say.
And largest civil and human rights organization and coalition. What does support of local communities look like to you now? What does it look like?
It looks like power. It looks like power. If I ask you this question, who has the most power to change the course of this country so that we're saving democracy rather than undermining it? Who would you say?
Man, we're talking about getting resources in our community, not saving this democracy. This democracy can fail all of here.
Voters of color between the ages of 18 and 35 who will soon be a third of the electorate.
That's BS.
Voters, but we want money.
Why do I say that? Because the very communities we are talking about right now,
watch this thing.
The very communities that we're talking about, how talk like you talking to your grandmother, the very people who are saying, we want to be entrepreneurs. We want to be able to afford college. We actually want an environmentally friendly future. We do think that you should be able to say gay and read a book.
No, we
without
don't.
anybody telling you you can't.
That's not art. Let me pause.
And my
this
family on one.
Listen. I don't care what they putting out there. We have conservative leanings when it comes to family in our community. I don't know why they always try to push this extreme liberalism when it comes to sex and gender off on us. I don't know why they always try to do that. When you look at the commercials and the ad for those HIV PrEP medications that you take. They always got us in the commercials front and center. This forum is not about voting. This forum is about getting money in the communities that need it. And everybody else came up there and spoke to their community, and they usurped our legacy and our history to do so. And then she comes up here, talks about voting and talks about our support for the LGBTQ community and talks about how we want to be entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I really just want a job where I can work 8 hours a day, make $100,000 a year, and be home with my family. That's the American dream right there. Not grinding out these long days to end up making no profit at the end of the year. I just read y'all the data on black businesses. Most black businesses are sole proprietorships, and we not making no money. We not like you to be the only reason why you see so many people in our community that sign up to be entrepreneurs is because we're locked out of the private sector. It's hard for us to get these jobs, and they're taking our plight and making it seem as if it's something that benefits our community. And that's just not true. She's just coming here saying anything. No, I need you to talk like them other ladies was talking. I need you to talk about investment and how you're going to get this money and bring it back to your community, not about this crap.
One side was enslaved not far from where Mayor Benjamin was the mayor. And in those places, Camden, South Carolina, many places in Georgia, the difference between us saying to folks, you have more power than you know, whether it's to design your communities, say what works for you, and have some folks who will actually listen, like Steve Benjamin, because he's right, we all text him too, it ain't just me. All 240 of my principals are texting Steve Benjamin. But it matters that we have people that actually show up and say, what do you need? And how do we make sure you can use it for the direction in the future you want? And if we're not saying that, my call to action for all of us is to recognize the power we have and recognize that all of us have the ability to tap and remind people that they have that power.
I don't know what she's talking about.
Wait, hold on.
This is about getting money into the hands of
your people. God. Look, Ibrahim, this was very hard to listen to. There's a video compilation going around of Kamala Harris, and it's a mashup of different parts of speeches. And it's hilarious because she's talking, but she's not saying anything. It's just a bunch of word salad, and that's all it is. And that's what you hear Maya Wiley doing right now. She's an MSNBC legal contributor. She does excellent in giving her breakdowns on Trump and what's going on and with that whole thing. But when it comes to this, you said something key. You said, why doesn't she sound like those other women that got up there and talked about specificity, meaning the things that they will do or want to do for their group of people? She got up here, start talking about feel-good speeches, about power. The people that's coming over here not thinking about power, they're thinking about they're not thinking about the Benjamin that she's talking about. They thinking about the Benjamins. You see what I'm saying? They thinking about money. They're not thinking that for them, the power was fleeing from their own homeland to come over to this country where they can build up a better life for themselves. That takes capital. What Maya Wiley is talking about, you can't say gay, or you need to be able to say gay, and or being enslaved in Georgia. None of that shit has anything to do with the fact that we need money. We need to build our communities back up. We need to get our homeless people off the streets because we are overrepresented in that category, because our people cannot afford homes. They can't afford rents. They can't afford mortgages. They don't have the credit score to take out the loans. They don't even have the finance to build up the credit scores like That is what is important. And what Maya Wiley is saying here is nonsense. And we need to start, man, I'm about to start clipping these videos and start tweeting at these people.
You got to. I mean, when she gets up there and says stupid stuff like this, I mean, like, see, when you watch this forum, you just hear the difference in how other representatives from other communities talk and how representatives from our community talk.
Even if they're working 2 jobs. Who has more power? And by power, I mean the ability to shape their future and their community's futures, who are the very people that they're trying to use. And I say they, because they ain't all of us. That they're trying to tell some of us to fear and to not favor. Because I'm going to tell you this. Every last one of us needs to stand up for being awake.
What the
What is she talking about, bro? What is she talking about?
Because if we're not woke, we sleeping.
We not.
And it is how they want us.
Well,
who is they? If we not, and she like drops the mic on that.
So much money.
Like she
What
really
she said,
said something
Josh?
profound.
Hit the blunt.
It's the blunt.
If you not woke, you sleep. No, this is about putting money in our community. If you're not woke, you sleeping. You know, the mayor from Savannah, Georgia, he comes up and he talks about Hilton Head, and he talks about how beach home properties wasn't that great, but now they're booming. And he got $6 million from some federal investment to help people with their mortgages and fixing up their homes. And I'm like, $6 million? That won't do anything. And it's $6 million over 5 years or something like that, right? And he says, let me let y'all listen to one of the other people that was on the panel, because I don't want to just pick on her like she was the only one saying stupid stuff. You know, at one time he says the South has something to say, and I was just thinking about, you know, if the South has something to say, then Jackson, Mississippi should have clean water, right? It's like the South ain't running anything. The South ain't running anything. These people was just getting up there just talking crazy, man.
It could be, though. If she want to talk about power, let us get up there. And we know what to say. We know what to say if you want to talk about power. But the South could have something to say if we made moves to have real power. But that's a different subject. But go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I think this is the Hilton Head. Let me see. I think I had it marked down when he talked about Hilton Head. Okay, it was 426. Yeah, okay, so he's about to get into Hilton Head.
Courageous conversation was, how do you help in this equation? So we ended up, and it's again totally owned by the state. They don't have to give anything, but we were able to really talk about the opportunities.
They don't have to give anything. Yes, they do.
That were mutually beneficial for both of us. And so for us in Savannah is housing. And so how do you address issues of housing? How do you address issues that people who work at your place of business don't have to drive an hour or 2 hours to get there? Mayor Benjamin is quite familiar with Hilton Head, South Carolina, where the folks who built Hilton Head can't afford to live there, and they drive or they bust in from Beaufort and those other areas. So we were able to work out with the Port Authority $6 million over 8 years, $750,000 a year, specifically for the port side communities, which are historically Black, historically disadvantaged, to be able to promote home ownership and home repairs. Because historically what happens is that two things happen. Grandmama gets old, the house she built, she can't afford to take care of anymore. And so it falls into disrepair, and then a whole other bunch of things happen. Or people willing to purchase those homes and they can't because of title or other issues. They have 300 heirs for the property because grandmama didn't think she would ever die. And so she told each child something different. And as a result, in my world, you know, somebody dies, it either makes families or it destroys families. And in our community, it destroys families because everybody remembers something different. And the longer time goes on and people die, the more heirs you add to the equation. And there's always somebody ultimately who says, we're not selling mama's house. No, we're not. And then somebody's, we're going to sell it and get all we can get. And then there's always that sibling you can't find. Nobody's talked to them in like 30 years. And so it becomes a problem, and it falls into issues of blight and issues of disrepair. So in this investment from the Port of Savannah, the Georgia Ports Authority, will allow us to help keep people in their homes in these historic communities. And so for us, that's a good thing, because when people are able to own homes,
I want y'all to know something. This man just said $6 million over 8 years, $750,000 per year. If I were to play, and I know y'all heard the investments that the other people was making in their community, right? They were talking about $100 million is not even enough. Y'all see this? This is Hilton Head. I'm on Zillow right now. This is Hilton Head. This is Hilton Head right here, y'all. I need y'all to see what these homes are going for. $599,000, 3 bedrooms, 4 baths, 2,500 square feet. You got $269,000, 2 baths, 3 bedrooms, a little bit over 1,000 feet. This one is for 1.9. This one is a little bit over $1 million. It's 3 bedrooms, 3 baths. This one is $639,000. This man just said $750,000 a year to help these people try to save their property. This one is for $12 million. This is $675 million. You can just pick anywhere on the map. $750,000 is a pittance. 1 bedroom, 1 bath is $312,000. How much money will you need if you got 1 bedroom, 1 bath on Hilton what was that called? That on this island to fix up your home, Hilton Head Island. Like, this man just, like, we gotta be serious about what we talking about. 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, $730,000. 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, 2,800 square feet, $1.8 million. Like, come on, man. Come on, man. This whole island belonged to the Gullah Geechee. These was their properties, and through heirs' rights, and this is something that this is really Marcel wheelhouse. He really digs into this stuff. But what this man is talking about is opinions. These people are not going to be able to keep their home. This is millionaires lane right here. This is big money right here. This is big money. $10 million homes, $6 million homes, $2 million homes, $700,000 homes. This is big money. And he's saying we got $750,000 for 6 years to help the poor Gullah Geechee people try to keep their home. How many families do you think that's going to help? Maybe 1, maybe 2. Like, come on, man. This is the type of investment that I'm talking about. So you come to the Freedmen Forums Bank and you bragging over $6 million, and other groups is talking about $100 million, and that ain't enough. And that's why we got to go to government. That's why they have to go to government and get a slice of this pie. And we bragging over $6 million over 8 years, $750,000 a year, where these people homes is being taken away from them in one of the richest locations in America. Like, this is absurd, man. This is like we not at the table. That's what I want people to understand. We are not at the table. This whole forum was a mess. Whole forum was a mess. No reason for Black people to even show up if this is what you bragging about getting. There's a solution to this, because I don't want to just gripe. There's a solution to this. So you got these MDIs and you got these CDFIs, and there is money that came into your community. And I know in Indianapolis, there's a guy named Marshawn Woolley. He's an American Freedman. He has a CDFI that he got from last year's Freedmen Forum, I think, of $5 million. I'm not sure if they're giving money out yet. I've contacted him. He hasn't contacted me back, but I'm going to stay at it, because I'm going to see if I can get some of that money. And I encourage everybody else that has a business to look up in their community who's running the MDI or the CDFI and apply to get some of that money. And don't take no for an answer. If your paperwork ain't right, tell them, hey, help me get my paperwork right. Go to whatever organization you have at your disposal and help them get your paperwork right so you can apply to get some of that money. Now, I think it's more favorable in my case because it's an American Freedmen man that runs the CDFI. That doesn't mean I'm going to get anything, but I know the person who runs the program, those who come from that same community, has a greater chance of benefiting from those programs. It's going to be hard when y'all go to these people who run CDFI and MDI in your community that's not from your community. So if it's ran by somebody who's from South America or Central America or, you know, a white woman or a white man, it's going to be hard for y'all to get some money. But I think part of the solution, it's a short-term solution, is do the due diligence, look in your community and see who's running the CDFI and who's running the MDI, and go to those institutions and see if you can get some of that money for your business. Let me know how it pans out. Maybe we have to do a show, and I'm going to update y'all on what's going on with me and my business and see if I got some money. The second solution to this is I know I said this last time and I'm going to say it again. There has to be a protest vote. They took this legacy of the Freedmen's Bank and they anchored it into everybody else, to all these new Americans. And they saying that we're going to spread this money out to everybody. This is Kamala Harris' pathway to her 2024 campaign. And what she's going to do is ride in off the coattail of President Biden. And I just think we have to say no. And it's not good enough. It's not good enough to you know, just not vote or vote independent or vote Green Party. I think we have to do a opposing vote to the other party. And I know that taste doesn't sound right. And like, it just doesn't seem right. Like, so we're going to vote Republican, but what else are we going to do when the Democrats is giving away all our benefit to other groups? I think that's the solution. The solution is that you seek out who's running the MDI and the CDFI in your community if you have a business, and you go and you try to get some of that money. But also we have to shut this thing down, and we have to send a message to the Democratic Party. I just believe in 2024, we have to have an opposing vote, and that opposing vote has to be against the Democratic Party, and it has to be who's running on the Republican ticket. That's the only way I see this, because if not, they're going, and there's more benefit than just shutting this nonsense down. The other benefit is that, you know, we can advocate for a reinvestment into citizenship into this country instead of giving money to Israel and giving money to Ukraine, Afghanistan, and everybody else, while also we can, you know, shore up those border protections, because capitalism means competition at the bottom, and more people come in at the bottom is just more people for us to compete. I know this doesn't sound sexy, and it's when you say vote Republican, it's like, oh man, you're a this, you're a that. But come on, man, we can't continue to vote Democrat, and they just don't have us at the table.
Well, what about down ballot Democrat?
You can't vote down ballot, because that's just not voting. That's just not voting. We have to oppose. I mean, if we knew that Biden-Harris administration was going to come in and do everything for everybody else, in a time where we're suffering, we got high-end inflation, we haven't rebounded from the recession, not alone COVID, and you just bringing everybody else in. You're sitting up there telling me that you have to invest in people that have the highest income in America, right? And people who are doing better than us is absurd. Y'all remember that Silicon Valley bank run? Y'all remember images from that bank run when all those Asian people showed up with backpacks? They had, I believe they said the average account had like $2 or $3 million in it. And they did a bank run. They grabbed their backpacks and their briefcases and everything. They ran to the bank and they made withdrawals on their account. And then Biden came through and he said, don't worry, if you lost money in this thing, I'm going to make sure you look out. You telling me those same people that had bank accounts of $2 million for their business, $3 million, $5 million aren't getting bank loans? You telling me people who come from communities where they have their own community banks that's tied back to institutions in their country don't get bank loans? You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. See, they using our legacy to spread it to everybody else. You get a little bit. We get what's left. And what's left is nothing because you got more and more and more immigrants coming in. We just can't survive. So I think, every time we do these videos, people always say, what's the solution? And I think that's the solution for tonight. Don't let Kamala in through the back door. Don't let Kamala in because she's going to try to build a base on giving new Americans things. That's her thing. She's a horrible candidate. Biden was a horrible candidate. Obama should have never had him as VP and dusted him off. And from Biden, we get Harris. It's just getting worse and worse and worse. He keeps saying, vote for the less of two evils. I think we got the greater of two evils in the White House right now. And that's sleepy Jim Crow Joe and Harris. And Harris' legacy is going to be giving our legacy away to everybody else. They're claiming that the Statue of Liberty was for them. They're anchoring themselves into the American Freedmen's Bank. They're anchoring themselves into the racial wealth gap. And that's Biden's and Harris' legacy. Like, we're just going to give them everything. If y'all remember the presidential debate, when Biden spoke on reparations, he said, man, don't ask me about no reparations. Mexicans.
Look, he said, I've been waiting to answer this one because nobody's asked me this. So it was like he was sitting there like, soon as they ask me about reparations, I'm going to talk about Hispanics.
It's crazy. He said, if you want anything, you're going to have to go to the Latino community and ask them. How does the backbone of said party have to go to some people that just got here? And that vote is pretty much split. It's like 60 something, 30 something between Democrats and Republicans, where ours is always over 80%. During Obama administration, at one time, over 90%. Voting Democrat, and you're telling your so-called base that they're going to have to go to a group that just got here, that some of them is not even citizen, and ask for what you need that you should have got generations ago. It don't make no sense. So yeah, I think opposition vote is the way to go this year. And if y'all scared of the Republican boogeyman that they're going to destroy democracy and tear everything down, democracy isn't working for us. So if that's true, then let's just burn it all down. Let's burn it all down and start over because we can't do no worse than where we at now. For you to come into this country and be doing better than us, you just got here and you doing better than us. We living on Skid Row. We living in tent cities. We can't even get into a homeless shelter. They giving them to migrants. They giving them to the migrants. We can't even get into, like, come on, man. We at the bottom of every category. When you look at this, we at the bottom of every category. Median wealth, blacks at the bottom. Mean wealth, American Freedmen are at the bottom. Look at this. Look at this. It just keeps persisting. The bottom. The bottom. Mean wealth by race. We at the bottom. Just year after year after year. Year after year after year. We just at the bottom. We just keep being at the bottom. And
so basically what you're saying is voting Democrat is hustling backwards.
Definitely. I mean, we got to see through this. And I know this is a time that everybody comes out on TikTok and they start making their videos about you stupid and the Republicans is going to bring in Lord Sith and Darth Vader and everybody, and they're going to destroy the planet if you vote for the Republicans. But it's like, come on, man, immigration is going to tear our community up, right? And you know, this whole thing about the racial wealth gap, and you're including these people in the racial wealth gap, and you're trying to anchor them into, and we call it the ethnic wealth gap, because it's not about race. It's not about race, because Latinos are white. Most Latinos are white. So it's so don't think that it's about race. It's not about race. Most of them identify as white. They're white. There's no Latino category for race. I'm sorry to tell y'all this if y'all didn't know, but those are just, those are just white people. They identify as white. Right? You got women. Women are the biggest beneficiaries of the racial wealth gap. That's white women. White women are the biggest beneficiaries of the racial wealth gap. So all that minority stuff, they just talking about giving money to white women. White men understand this. White men understand this, so they get the big piece of the pie, and then they send their wife to get the other piece of the pie. That's how they do this. That's how they do it. We got Latinos coming into this country, just like the Irish, just like the Italians. They get to be white. They just get to be white people, man. I don't know how they get anchored into our racial wealth gap. More Hispanics declaring themselves white. So first you come into this country and you consider yourself to be brown, but then you just become a white man. Hispanics are often described as driving up the non-white share of the population, but a new study of census forms find that more Hispanics are identifying as white. An estimated net 1.2 million Americans of the 35 million Americans identifying 2000 of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin, as the census form puts it, changed their race from some other race to white. Between the 2000 and 2010 census, according to the research presented at an annual meeting of the Population Association America reported by Pew Research, they're white. One, not even a full generation in this country, they understand that whiteness is the way to go. And to become white, you have to be anti-American freedmen. They understand this. That's why you got firebombs in LA. That's why you got jobs in Chicago that they run, that they don't hire American freedmen. American freedmen get locked out. 37% of Hispanics, presumably dissatisfied with options like white or black, selected some other race. The research found that 2.5 million Americans of Hispanic origin, or approximately 70% of the 35 million Americans of Hispanic origin in 2000, changed their race from some other race in 2000 to white in 2010. 2.5 went from some other race to white, while 1.3 million switched in the other direction. So 2.5 went from some other race to white, 1.3 went from white to some other race. So 1.3 came over and immediately selected white. So yeah, man, that's today's show, man. Like we can't continue to do this. We got to get better at politics. You got to be a protest vote. It has to be a protest vote. There is no other way. If you can co-opt the American Freedmen's Bureau, the Freemans Bank Bureau, you can co-opt anything. Next, they'll be co-opting slavery. They'll be co-opting Reconstruction. I mean, the Freeman's Bank is part of Reconstruction. Our legacy in this.
That's where we at now, actually. Like, again, the whole point of talking about the racial wealth gap is to use it as a measuring stick for how much we need to do in reparations as far as payout. If they're now using the Freeman's Bank Forum to talk about the racial wealth gap between whites and Latinos, or, then I don't understand what that really means. Like I do understand what it means. What it means is you're saying that you need to get what is equivalent to our reparations, even though you didn't go through slavery and all of that. That's what they're essentially saying.
What America is saying is that nobody should have to come to this country and live like an American freedman. That's inhumane for anybody to have to come to this country, even if it's just half a generation, one generation, two generations. Nobody should have to come to this country and live like the American freedman. That's specifically for the American freedman. This floor, this bottom has been created only for one group, and that's us. The only ones that can survive on the bottom is us. Y'all cool on the bottom. Y'all be doing good things on the bottom. Y'all control what little bit y'all can. Y'all had some great inventions from the bottom, right? Y'all was like, y'all got jazz, y'all got blues, y'all created rock and roll, y'all created hip hop. Y'all are the culture. Y'all do good thriving on the bottom. Y'all make great lemonade out of the lemons y'all been getting. We gave y'all intestines and y'all made chitlin, y'all made ham hocks. Y'all do good, right? Y'all can survive on the bottom. Y'all was meant to be the crabs of this society. But for everybody else, it's inhumane. Nobody else can survive on the bottom. It's not right. We can't have people coming and crossing this border and being in concentration camps. Now, y'all can be in prisons, right? And we'll over-police y'all. And Kamala Harris, when she was a prosecutor in San Francisco, she'll keep y'all in prison and y'all can be fighting fire. And she'll even put you in prison if you're innocent or withhold evidence. That's okay for y'all to do that. But we can't do that. We can't do that. We can't do that. See, Asians aren't meant to be on the bottom. They come from the top 10%. There's a study that says only about 10% of Chinese immigrants that only about 10% of Chinese people in China have what's equivalent to a bachelor's degree. They have something else over there, and that raises them to about 17%. When they get here, 50% of them have college degrees. So what you're looking at is that we are competing when it comes to Chinese Americans from their top 10%. So they come from these elite families with wealth and ties to elite institutions, and then they come here, and we as a bottom caste society has to compete against them. Is that fair? Is that fair for you to be coming from nothing, from absolute nothing, and whatever you was able to create got taken away from you? And you got to compete with groups of people that have everything. You got to compete with people who are heirs of their society. You know about, that was so disrespectful when that man talked about we got to be able to pass these businesses on that white people was able to create during the New Deal. And let new Americans get these jobs, right? New Americans get these jobs. They get to become middle managers. White people get to become capital holders. And you guys, you just got to fend for yourself at the bottom because the bottom was created for you. You know who should have got the benefits after World War II? You know who should have really got the benefits after World War II? See, it was a certain group of people. Right. It was a certain group of people that should have got benefits after World War II. And they didn't get it. It was people like these. These are the Harlem Hellfighters. These are the Harlem Hellfighters. They didn't get to eat in the mess hall with the white POWs and their quote unquote white counterparts that was fighting in World War II as well. These people came back and got lynched, got treated with disdain, got denied the GI Bill, got denied home loan, couldn't get into colleges. If you was to get into an institution, only one person could enroll at a time. And then they had to finish the whole program before another American Freedman was able to get in. And when they had some success, white mobs got mad and went and lynched them. These people went into Germany and helped free the Jewish people from concentration camps. And in return, they came back home and those same Jewish people discriminated against them and put up racial covenant deeds and didn't let these people into their community because they were scared of their property value being lowered. They were scared of their property value being lowered. We just saved your life. We just helped risk our lives to get you out of concentration camp, and you come to the country that we built and you box us out of communities because you don't want the value of your homes and your communities to go down. These people came back and got lynched. They didn't qualify for the GI Bill. If anybody should be able to take over what businesses was created from the New Deal, it should be us. It should be the descendants of these people. It should be the American Freedmen now. Not new Americans, right? And I will go a step further and say these people need reparations. We not only should we be able to get those jobs, we should be able to have investment in our community where we can create employment and scale up and scale our businesses up and be able to compete. We should be able to compete with Facebook and Google, right? And that's what Dirty talks about. We can't just close the racial wealth gap at the median. We have to close it at the mean. We need every category for us to be on top. So we need super elites, we need elites, we need middle class, we need upper middle class. We need all of that. We don't just want to close it at the median. We want to close it at the mean. We want to close it at the average. We need all of that. Dirty stresses this. I stress this. Josh stress this. That's the work that we trying to do. We should be on par with whites. And like Josh said, maybe we need to be shooting for the Asians then. Since you want to bring them into this conversation, since you want to bring them into the conversation, maybe we need to be closing the racial wealth gap at those who are highest. Because if Asians was on this board, they would be much higher than whites. And this is an old chart. It ain't got worse since there. So yeah, I think the solution is a protest vote. Family, I'm gonna end on this note. Figure out who in your community is running an MDI program, who's running a CDFI program. Look into it. If you got a business, apply for it. I'm going to apply in Indianapolis. I'm going to get back to y'all and let y'all know how it goes. But also the second step to this is that we can't let Biden get another term in this White House, because I believe what Tamika Mallory said is that Kamala Harris is ready. And Kamala Harris already told you.
The reality also is this. Any policy that will benefit Black people will benefit all of society. Let's be clear about that. Let's really be clear about that. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people. No.
But she will do something that's supposed to benefit Black people and use it to benefit everybody. Because that's the legacy of America. And as immigrants, they just want to be white. And the way to be white is to be anti-American freedmen. Josh, you got any closing remarks on this? I think this is Kamala Harris' pathway into becoming president of the United States of America. And she's going to use new Americans and give away everything that's supposed to come to us. So we got to apply for those CDFI and we got to protest vote. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think we just got. I'm really trying to think about what do we need to do to bring this to more heightened attention, because I mean, the fact that they can do this, it's disrespect, but it's all like, I don't know what's her name was talking about, the sister with the dread bun, the gray dread bun. I don't know what she was talking about, because she's talking about power. You must not have much power if people can come and start a Freemans Bank forum and talk about everything other than reparations and fixing the problems that America caused in the American Freedmen community today. Closing the wealth gap between freedmen and whatever the highest level of wealth is in the country. Like, those are the issues. You should be talking about freedmen issues. You should not be using the Freedmen's Bank Forum to basically talk about replacing the freedmen, like forgetting about the freedmen. And I wanted to add one other point. What I can't remember what this other brother was talking about, the bald head brother, but he was talking about history. Like, he's operating like we are just a relic of history. Hakeem Jeffries was operating and talking like we're just some relic in history. So you say communities that are historically Black. Well, are we just historically people? Are we historically Black people? Or are we American freedmen, that sect of Black people? Like, well, which one is it? Are we just now history? Is that what you're saying?
We're in the past tense. We don't exist no more.
It's almost like we're invisible.
It's like we're still here. We're dying out. We're just not dead yet. So you talk about us as if we are in the past tense.
Yo, we in that
until
movie
it's time for us to vote for you.
Yo, we
then
Patrick
we allow
Swayze or whatever right now. We Patrick Swayze. People talking about us and talking all around us, and they acting like we not in the room and we can't hear nothing they saying. Like, it's really crazy. It's really crazy. But the crazy part is when you get American freedmen in the room, it's interesting. Like, we've been so conditioned to play the role of having to speak about giving away. We can't get anything specific for us. That's an injustice to the American society. So we're so used to giving away and having to include everybody in that conversation that even when other people are being, exclusive, we still do the same thing. in something that was historically meant for us. So I mean, I don't know what's wrong with these people. I don't know what's wrong with these people.
You
They're
know,
so out of touch and so brainwashed. But go ahead.
Satchel Ohio says, "Is staying home a protest vote?" Staying home isn't a protest vote. We seen this with some organizations of the past where they said do a down ballot vote or no reparations, no vote. I'm saying a protest vote is voting in opposition to one party. And because we come from a two-party system, that means when you're in opposition to Democrats, to send a message to the Democrats, you have to vote Republican. I did a previous show, y'all can go check it out, on why Cornel West is not the candidate Black American needs. So for us right now, a protest vote would be voting Republican. And it's voting Republican to dismantle things like this, but also this open border policy that they have, this ability for them to fast track asylum seekers and people who are immigrating to this country, and to stop them from hijacking our lineage, man, because that's exactly what they're doing. So no, a protest vote would be voting Republican. And like I said, if the boogeyman is real and they're going to disrupt this democracy and burn this country down, then I'll go for that. I'll take a bag of that, because it's not working for us. It's not working for us in this country. When you look at this data, it's clear we're on the bottom of every category. Every category, we're on the bottom. And you just anchored Asians into this. Like, how did Asians become a part of the racial wealth gap? I wouldn't even put Hispanics in this. They're doing better than us, and they just got here. In every category, they're over $1.8 million at the mean wealth for Asians. 200 and come on, Hispanics got more than us. 1.3 for whites, right? Greater home ownership, right? It's just like they get acclimated into this society at a greater rate than us. We're at 46% home ownership. They're at 51%. I bet if you look at the value of the home, their homes is valued more than 73% for whites, right? It's just at every category. And they're, for a group that just got here and their constituents, the people that represent them, saying like, this isn't right, we got to do more. The bottom was made for American freedmen, and the Democratic Party and the Republican wants to keep us there. But I'm just saying, capitalism means competition at the bottom. In order to get rid of this competition, I think we got to send a message to the Democratic Party. So I'm going to just end on this note, man. Like, the two solutions is do the opposition vote, and in your community, look for the MDI, look for the CDFI, apply. We'll do a follow-up. I did a video previously talking about why Cornel West isn't the best candidate for Black voters. One, he's running as an independent. He's not even going to be on the ballot. So he really has no chance of even winning. But I went through his policy prescriptions, and while he does have reparations, which RFK doesn't, he also has this vast notion of fast tracking immigration as well. And you can't do both. And we know, like, just if a miracle happened and he was able to become president, we know he wouldn't be able to get everything done. So what happens is you're going to have to pick something to leave off the table. And we're going to get left off the table. I mean, I love Cornel West. I agree with a lot of things he said, but at the end of the day, he folded. He folded just like Bernie folded. And he said, you know what, I'm going to vote for Biden. And he supported Biden. I need the man that criticized Obama to just stand with it. If we out in the cold, stand out in the cold with us. But don't fold at the very end. I'm tired of our people folding. Every election cycle, they talk tough when it's a non-cycle. Soon as the election cycle come in, everybody folds and say we just got to vote Democrat one more time. And if you can see, and I posted some of Dirty tweets, if you can see, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. The racial wealth gap is getting bigger, and what that means is the top 10% of white families is worth over $1 million. And then that bottom 20% services them. So, those are high manager jobs. And what they're saying is that, a lot of white people is just making so much money, they about to stop working. And the racial wealth gap is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. White family now comes to a staggering $1.5 million, given the average black family size, right? We had 393. It's just, and that's boasted by immigration. If 90% of the 47.2 million black people in the U.S. are descendants of persons enslaved in the U.S., 42.48 million would be eligible for reparations. Reparations sufficient to close the racial wealth gap will require at least 16.71 trillion. The debt keeps growing. Under the Democrats, the debt is growing. Like, can we at least put a stop to this thing? So yeah, I think we have to do a protest vote, and this is not something you say and it picks up steam, because everybody gonna say, no, you just a Republican, you just a this, you just a that. Now, I challenge Roland Martin or anybody, Tamika Mallory, in any of those Democratic pundits, Democratic shields. I challenge anybody how voting Democrat helped us, because we've been the backbone of that community. And they, Biden came right into office and started scolding quote unquote black leaders. He had Johnson, the head of the NAACP, and everybody on, and he just got right to scolding them, man. I think Kamala Harris, she ran a failed campaign. She's a bad candidate, but she figured out a way. If she couldn't get the POTUS through the front door, she figured out a way to get through it through the back door by Ron Biden's coattail. And she's going to ride this thing into the presidency, and she's going to pick up base through New Americans by giving everything away that we tried to fight for. This whole reparations claim. The Democrats already said we're not trying to hear nothing about no reparations. And I'm not saying Republicans is advocating for reparations either, because they not. I'm just saying, I think we got to do a protest. I appreciate y'all for watching this video. Peace. Thanks. If you guys is not subscribed to the channel, please like, share, and subscribe, because this stuff is getting louder and louder. I think the next video I'm going to do, I was watching this YouTube channel, and this YouTube channel with over 2 million subscribers, they was talking about an issue that's going on now. It had nothing to do with us. And then they just pivoted to reparations. These guys ain't even from America. They pivoted to American Freedmen reparations, and they start talking about how we don't deserve reparations. These are two black guys. So that's going to be the next video, because stuff like this, people look at us and they say, man, them guys don't need anything. Right. And it's sad when you have that point of view when you're not even in this country. You just pivot straight to us, because the way to become normal, the way to become white is to be anti-American freedmen. So I think that's the next show. Thanks everybody for watching. Like I said, please like, share, and subscribe. If you watch on the replay, just, give me your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks everybody. Peace.